Everybody's got COVID, but hey, we don't right at this moment have COVID as far as we know. This is old school, new school football. You have tuned into our weekly discussion about the NFL. That stands for not for long, Jude, and we won't be not for long here if we don't introduce and talk about some NFL football. How are you doing, Jude? What's happening?
I am happy to be here, and as far as I know, as you've mentioned before, COVID-free. It seems like everyone is catching it right now. Yes, cross the fingers. But NFL right now, it's definitely a story. It's rampant. Everyone has got COVID. So many games postponed last week. On the one hand, it's great. We get 5 days of football last week. On the other hand, it's kind of scary because it's just like everyone is popping up on the IR, it seems like.
Well, let me ask you, let's start with this. Changing the NFL COVID policy midstream. How do you feel about this? Because they last year they had a whole set of rules, and then in the offseason they decided to make a different set of rules that were very specific, and we are never going to postpone games, and we're going to actually forfeit if it's your fault and you're not vaccinated, blah blah blah. But then they completely caved on that and postponed games this weekend. How do you feel about this change in policy midstream?
I'm like halfway on it. On the one hand, it's like you don't want to see the postponements, you don't want to see guys, the stars, not playing in the games. And I think that contributes to them caving in to those policies, because if your stars aren't playing, then you lose money, obviously, because now it's lesser of a game. Now they have to think about which games they have in prime time. So it's a lot of things that factor into it. Like they can't just have the third string quarterback playing. I think they did that last year where they said, we're not moving this Denver game. And Denver has a guy, God bless his heart, comes in off of like no practice and how long and plays quarterback. And it was the worst game ever and pretty much unfair to Denver. And I think they realized at that point, we can't have this. Now, I think at the time they put in these policies of we won't be postponing anything or anything like that. They were thinking, well, if we make everyone get vaccinated, then, not that many people or not that many teams will have these COVID outbreaks and we won't have this situation. But then it's just a continuous thing where we're just continuously learning. And, the vaccine is not preventing COVID outbreaks. So it becomes a thing now. And now they have to take that step back. That's just what it is. That's just the situation that we're in. That's what it's unfolding into. And, they're addressing it as best as they could. I'm not terribly opposed to 5 days of football. So, there's a silver lining there. Yeah. But, nonetheless, I would hope that, this is just maybe this 1 week thing and it doesn't become something that we have to look out for the rest of the season, especially with the playoffs around the corner. And hopefully, they get this new variant under control and, pray for them.
I just feel like here's my take is, you made teams earlier in the season. You made the Packers play without Aaron Rodgers. The Steelers play without Ben Roethlisberger. And in fact, the worse, the Steelers had to play a game against the Chargers without T.J. Watt, Minka Fitzpatrick, and Joe Hayden. You made the Ravens play without Lamar Jackson and like 3 or 4 other guys. So, to those teams, I don't think it's particularly fair to let games be postponed so that a few more players can come back. As it turned out with the Browns game, it didn't really change much. But even with the delay, most of the players were still out. But I just feel like you either have a rule and everybody has to deal with it equally, and you can say, well, it didn't work out in our favor, but at least it was fair. But this didn't really seem fair.
I think with that one, what someone in the league would argue is that it wasn't so much to get them back, but that so many people were testing positive for COVID. And it was like with each passing day, somebody else. So I think that was more an effort to curb, the increasing numbers, just wanting to test more people out because all these people are in the building with these guys who tested positive. So they're thinking, it's not completely unlikely that 2 days later, somebody else is going to test positive for it. So let's take a little pause here. And that I'm not opposed to, because that is putting the other players' safety first and everybody they're coming in contact with and just making sure it's not spreading like wildfire as it seemed like it was early on in the week. So I'm not I'm completely opposed to it, but I definitely understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, well, let's talk about some of the actual games that did happen, and let's go back all the way back from 5 days of football, almost a week now, to the first game of the week, which was one of the better ones with Kansas City and the Chargers hooking up. The interesting part of this game was that Kansas City's defense without Chris Jones pretty much looked terrible, but yet they were the difference in the game because they made plays when they needed to. How did you see the difference tell me the difference between the Chargers and the Chiefs right now?
Chargers played a very good game. They played a very, very good first half, and they gave the Chiefs their best shot. It's a crazy stat, but it's been a good long streak. I think like 8 or 9 wins straight for Kansas City as far as like playing the Chargers at their home. It's unheard of where you can't beat a team at your home, especially when it's not like you've been just a terrible team all these years. You've had some good teams during those losses. Nonetheless, they played a good game, but they just couldn't finish it. It came down to overtime. They had them against the ropes, but they just couldn't finish it. They kind of went away from what was working for them. That running game, Kansas City could not stop it at all. Even in the second half when they ran the ball, they couldn't stop it, but they just ran the ball a little bit less, and they didn't impose their will on them. Yeah. Chris Jones not being there made a world of difference because it looked like nobody was stepping up to, meet that running back in the hole and stop the running game. And they took advantage. They took that early halftime lead. And then defensively, the Chargers played some great defensive ball. Kansas City has been coming on strong as of late, but they were limiting, I won't say stopping, they were limiting what they were giving Kansas City in that first half. Second half, it just looks like the Chiefs made adjustments and the Chargers didn't. They thought they could come out there with the same game plan and just continue to take over the game. And they didn't look and think about what adjustments maybe the Chiefs would make and how can we combat that. And, it just looks like they were outmatched. It came down to overtime, and Chiefs got the ball first in overtime, and, they were hot, and I'm sorry, but once they're hot, they've got the ball rolling, and they figured out what you're doing on defense, and you don't change up what you're doing on defense. I'm sorry, but that's all she wrote. And, you
got to mix it up a little bit against a team like that. Although I would say about the Chiefs, I'm not really sure they're what I would call firing on all cylinders, but they just enough to make the plays to win, but they're not blowing out teams like they were 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. They were just, nobody had an answer for their offense at all 2 years ago. But now it feels like, all right, you've dropped out, you drop back in a cover 2 shell and you put an extra guy on Travis Kelce. Yeah, you're going to slow them down, make them go a little piece at a time down the field, and they're not that patient. But yeah, it just feels like I don't feel like anybody in the AFC I really trust 100%. That was a kind of a question I was going to ask you when we got around to picking the second parts of games, but tell me about a game that happened this week where you watched a team and you thought, okay, I trust this team week in and week out to give you their best and probably win most weeks.
Let's stick to the AFC then, and you viewed that Chiefs game as glass half empty. I choose to view it as glass half full because I think back to the last time they were just severely outmatched in the first half, and that was the Super Bowl, and they did not make the adjustments. And they seemed content with just getting their tuchuses handed to them all game. And they just said, all right, we fold. You got us. There's nothing we can do. They came out in this game, and that's what happened. You got punched in the face. And instead of just letting yourself repeatedly get punched in the face, you said, let's make some adjustments. Let's play some defense. And then we can start swinging back. And that's what they did. I like it because it shows we're not going to just be this one-dimensional team. We're going to try different things out and see what works for us. Yeah, I know it's not pretty. It's not the blowouts that we're accustomed to. But, hey, it's winning football games. And we're still on a winning streak. And we're probably the hottest team in football right now. So I like it for them. I like it going into the playoffs. I like it because this was probably one of the toughest games they had left on their schedule. And they came out with the victory, So I think it's a good thing. That being said, I'm with you in that I'm not going to sit there and say these guys are surefire 100% going to win a Super Bowl, going to win the AFC, even be the first seed in the AFC. It's likely, it's very possible for them, but I'm not going to sit here and put my life savings on it. But it is the AFC, and you can say that about pretty much all of the teams in the AFC right now. So I guess I would trust them more than I do anybody else in this conference of football. As far as in the NFL in general, there are a couple teams I feel like I can definitely trust. I would definitely say the Packers.
I think the Packers are more likely to lose an unexpected game in the postseason than they are to lose an unexpected game the rest of the way. Yeah, like they had that vibe to them that they're cruising in the regular season right now.
That's been their MO for so many seasons now, where it's just like, okay, they can possibly win this game, and just a shocker in the end, or they go against that team that everybody thinks is going to beat them, and they do in fact lose to them. So it's like the Packers all of a sudden are a team that can't win in the playoffs. But as far as like taking care of business in the regular season, absolutely, I can trust them. Aaron Rodgers is playing as well as I've ever seen him played. And again, as I was mentioning, that defense really stepped it up during the first quarter of the season. It was very suspect, especially in the red zone, but they fixed it up. Even though they gave up 30 piece to the Ravens and a backup quarterback, I let that slide. You don't really have the film on him. You don't really know how you're going to attack him. And it turns out he's actually a pretty decent quarterback given the opportunity. So it might have just caught them, it might have caught them off balance a little bit. But hey, as far as consecutive wins, how well they play when all their guys are healthy, I like the Packers. I like what they're doing. It's just a matter of what can they do in the playoffs this time around. It's kind of the same thing that they've been having these last couple of years, and that's a little bit scary. But I also think those games are all a matter. It's not so much the talent you have, but the game planning and the coaching that you have in those games. Sure. Hopefully they have something, different that they can go into these games with, and, maybe they can find a way to win this time.
Because in the postseason, you're playing better quality opponent generally, and you're playing good teams that know how to game plan and coach. And, like you said, those little differences, that makes a big difference sometimes in the postseason. That's the difference between it being, a 17-17 game and somebody getting a couple extra scores and winning, handily. The difference is not that much. One thing interesting about the AFC is, I believe I have it correct, that all four division leaders in the AFC can either win the first seed overall or can be out of the playoffs. That's how close the margin is for everything. Because I know, being a Steelers fan, the Steelers literally can be the number one seed in the conference, or number two without any upsets even, and they can be out of the playoffs just as easily. So it's sort of like the margin between the 12th or 13th team and the first team is like 2 games or something. So with 3 games to go, which is the closest I can ever remember it being for that deep in the conference. So I just feel like it's going to be really hard to even have judgment about who you can trust in the AFC until the season's over. Even then, I think everybody will have had terrible losses. Like now Arizona joined the ranks of teams with terrible losses, losing to Detroit. And everybody will have a terrible loss and everybody will have an unexpected win. And then you'll just have to sort it out later,
I mean, we're not gonna talk too much on that Arizona game, but you could just if you watched it at all, you could just kind of see they came out, and I feel like they probably just had that mentality, it's Detroit, we're gonna beat them, we're one of the better teams in the league, we're not worried about it. And sometimes you can just get punched in the face, and you can never kind of readjust after that. And as I've been saying all year, although they're probably the worst team in football, they're also one of the hardest playing teams in football. So you find yourself in a dogfight with them, anything can happen.
Detroit has to be careful. They're going to get themselves out of that number one seed for the draft.
I don't know. There's a team called the Jaguars that's really making it tough to give that number one seed up to them right now. I think the Jaguars, how many wins do the Jaguars?
2.
I think it might be the Jaguars because now Detroit's got 2 wins and a tie. So it's definitely the Jaguars.
And the Jets, right there.
Jets are right there, yeah. Houston's right there. Dolphins aren't there.
Houston, there you go.
Houston's right there, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk the Saturday game and the Colts versus the Patriots. How'd you like that one?
I'm developing my theory of, Wil Masisak's theory about the NFL run game, and especially in 2021, like the modern era, and that is that you cannot win by being basically a running team unless you have a passing team to complement it and score points off of the domination that your run game has, or if you can hit home runs at running back. And you saw with the Colts almost didn't have enough to win this game, and then they hit a home run.
They won despite Carson Wentz.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like, this formula. I don't know how well it works in the long run, but boy, Jonathan Taylor is making an argument for being the best running back in football. He was terrific.
Jump on the train with me, man. Just jump on it with me. It hasn't let me down in the last couple of weeks.
It's not just that he's fast and all this other stuff. It's the sort of little things that people don't always notice. It's setting up blocks, so he'll make it look like he's going to run up the middle with just one step, a little hesitation, and then break it to the outside after the linebackers, the second level commit to the interior hole. And man, that it just gets a lot of mileage out of that. But you can't get away with that if you don't have a good jump step or jump cut, or you don't have the burst to get to the edge, or you don't have the burst to change directions in the hole. But he seems to be able to do all those things. And the fumbling issue that he had in college and his first year seems to be mitigated a lot, and that's a big difference.
Who would you say? Because I've got a specific guy in mind, and he should come straight to your mind too. But who would you say his style of running reminds you of?
Boy, maybe I don't know that I have a very, very close one in mind. I'm sure as soon as you say it, I'm gonna feel it. But what are you thinking?
I was thinking Le'Veon, just the way Le'Veon.
Le'Veon has his burst, and Le'Veon's burst in the hole and the hesitation and all that stuff is so unique. But Taylor has top end speed that Le'Veon Bell could only dream of having.
Yeah, but I'm talking more so the way Le'Veon was just so patient when he got that handoff. It wasn't just I'm gonna plow my way through. It was I'm gonna take this little step, make a quick read, and then boom, I'm going to hit the hole.
Yeah.
Back when Le'Veon was in his prime, he was the greatest.
Amazing at that. No, he's zero. His acceleration from 0 to, whatever second year was as good as anybody I've ever seen play the game. Yeah. Roger Craig, was also a guy that was that style from back in the day. Mm-hmm. But no, I think when I see Taylor, it's more like LaDainian Tomlinson or somebody that has the little knack for how to make the blocking and hole work for you and figure out where to go. And the vision, it's the vision part of it, man. You can have all the tools in the world, but if you can't see where the hole is and figure out a way to get there, without stopping your momentum going forward, like that's the part that guys are not that good at. But I respect that a lot about his game. I just don't think for the Colts that they have the complementary pieces to make Jonathan Taylor carry them all the way through a playoff run, which is a shame because I think he's deserving of the accolades that he's getting right now.
Yeah, they definitely don't have the pieces. I mean, they did win that game on Saturday against what many people thought was a good Patriots team. But quite frankly, I'm going to go out on this limb and just stay on this limb that I don't think they're as good as the record would indicate. They beat a lot of not very good teams, okay? So we saw Mac Jones in that first half. The game plan was not working, especially when they didn't have Damian Harris. And they were trying to run the ball with Ramondre Stevens. And he works better in a 1-2 punch with Harris than him being the feature back. So now a lot more emphasis went into what Mac Jones could do for them. In that first half, it wasn't a very good picture as far as offensively. And second half.
I was impressed in the second half with the fact that he fought back.
Yeah.
And didn't give up on that game, which a lot of young quarterbacks would do. Yeah. But I just feel like, that some players are transcendent players and some are just good in the, when things are like the example I would give. And I think Mac Jones has the potential to be a better player, but Kirk Cousins is the player that comes to mind where when it's there, when you've game planned and you've got the right play called and the right scheme, Kirk Cousins is a guy who can execute it and he knows where to go with the football and he can manipulate the defense and do his thing, make a great throw. But when they shut you down and you're forced to try to come up with something to do something when there's not really a play there's not really a receiver open, there's not really what you want to be doing. That's the thing where Mac Jones is right now as a rookie. He's not really capable of doing that. And I feel
that's okay because
that'll be their flaw in the postseason is that they'll come against somebody defensively who takes away what he is able to do, and it'll be hard for him to go to the next step yet.
Yeah, he's a rookie. At the end of the day, he's a rookie, He's going to take what the defense gives him. He's got the coaches in his ears kind of telling him what to look at first and where he should be going with the ball. He's not off the leash so far. The leash isn't long enough right now where he can kind of just go out there and, be free-spirited with it and kind of just chuck it all the way downfield if he feels like doing so. right now it's all a matter of playing within the game plan and making sure you stay on Bill's good side. Let's not mention he has one of the better offensive coordinators in football and Josh McDaniels, all right? So don't get me wrong. 2-3 years from now, if we see him progress, he might be one of the better quarterbacks in the league. But right now, as far as this Patriots team, I really just don't think they're as good as this record would indicate. A lot of people were saying, hey, this is a team that can make some noise in the postseason. I just don't see it happening, you know? Like the Colts are a hot team right now, but they're not a great team. They're a team that any team with real playoff aspirations would be able to beat, because as much as I love what they do with Jonathan Taylor, it's very simple to stop them. Stop the run. Force Carson Wentz to beat them, because when they start throwing the ball more, that's when they're more prone to making mistakes on offense. Yes, they play good defense, but they're not an impenetrable defense. So there's holes all around to beat this team, and you weren't able to do it, but they just so happen to be the best team you faced in a while. And we see what happened as a result of that, which is why I stay on this limb that this Patriots team is not going to make the noise that so many people were saying that they would in this year's playoffs. Even in the AFC, where anything literally, this NFL in general, anything can happen any week this year. But
AFC stands for anything freaking could happen.
Anything. But I'm sorry, it's just not happening. They'll definitely make it into the playoffs because the Bills have fumbled away the opportunity to run away with the division. But it might be a first round exit for them is what I'm looking at. You know,
here's the problem with being Mac Jones going forward. You're in a conference with Justin Herbert and Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen, for that matter. You're in the division with, so your competition just to make it in the Pro Bowl or get a playoff win is nothing is going to be handed to you on a silver platter,
Yeah.
So it's like you're really going to have to do some proving of yourself to be viewed as being an elite quarterback, even if you have a nice career,
I'll tell you this. I love what I see from him as a rookie. And again, as long as he develops, I think he'll be able to compete with these guys. At the very least, Belichick, probably the greatest coach of all time. He's going to always put his team in position to compete with the Mahomes, with the Lamar Jacksons, with the Justin Herberts.
Well, he went 9-7 with the kid that never played college football. I mean, Belichick is capable of doing anything for sure that way. Dude, what did we miss from this weekend? I'm sure we missed something good.
There's a ton we missed. Let's talk the Packers barely escaping going against a backup quarterback.
Yeah, that was a weird game. It was like it felt watching it that the Packers were in complete control of this game, and there was no chance that Baltimore was going to get back into it. As it turned out, they came within a 2-point conversion of being able to win. I just felt like the Packers lost their minds on defense for a little while there, and it allowed the Ravens to get back in the game. And I'm not really sure I understand that. Maybe it's a little bit of that extension of what you said before about Arizona with Detroit, that they just, you think, we have this backup quarterback. We don't have Lamar Jackson. All we got to do is score some points and we'll keep them down. And I felt like they just sort of lost their edge a little bit. And it's like you got one, real threat in Mark Andrews. And it's like, if you can't figure out the ball is going to him and how to stop it, then I don't know if you deserve to win games. And this is what I'm saying. And the Green Bay might be the most trustworthy team in the league, and they almost gave that game away.
Again, it's one of those games you kind of just look at and say, we've got this in a bag. We want to. You get tired during the year. It's kind of like, okay, maybe we could take it easy this week because we've got a soft opponent. Because even with all those injuries offensively, they've also got a defense that's reeling with how many injuries. Pretty much all of their cornerbacks, they had to, come up from second and third string to now starters. So I'm pretty sure Green Bay was definitely thinking, we've got it in the bag. They don't have their best weapon. Their defense has so many holes in it. We're good to go. But the Ravens came out. They're a well-coached team as well, and they gave them their best shot. And those 2-point conversions, if they were able to figure out those 2-point conversions, this could be a team that's sitting in first place in the AFC right now. But
I think they outsmart themselves a little bit. They have Tyron Huntley, a guy who's probably going to be somebody that for his mobility and his ability to be a threat running it, and you call a pocket pass for him. It's sort of like, okay. On the other hand, if he just puts the ball in the pylon, it's a conversion. I mean, Mark Andrews was open. It's just the throw was not a good throw. It was to the inside.
Yeah.
But it's like, so the play call wasn't really terrible. It's just like, okay, you call a play call where you're counting on your mobile quarterback who doesn't play that much to be sharp enough to hit a target, from 30 yards away. A tough call for him, but I'm happy as a Steelers fan. I mean, that Ravens loss. I mean, I'm dead serious. It's like when you take into account the Kansas City's COVID issues that they have going on right now, it remains to be seen if this game will be played on time or if they will, actually have guys available to them like Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. Mm-hmm. But if the Steelers play an undermanned Kansas City team and come out of there with a win, they're literally in the driver's seat. They could be the number 2 seed without anything weird having to happen in the NFL. And they're not that good. I mean, they're not good enough to be the number 2 seed in the NFL, but they're trending that way just by sheer fact of, the way these things even out with COVID. Very strange year for football. It's funny. I don't think I guess what I'm saying is your standing and what your 1-loss record is almost it's almost hard to discern from that if you're good or not. Even the teams that are 2 games over 500, I'm not sure they're really that great.
Right. I just want to point out, I just love how there was no intent on touching on the Steelers, but you made sure. Well,
I only say this because of Kansas City, and they're, I'm sure when we get to the games, it's a game that we're going to talk about, but it's like everybody has all the playoff teams basically have 3 games remaining, and almost all of them have 3 games against teams with a winning record. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of like there's, Buffalo, I think Buffalo and maybe Indianapolis are the only teams in the whole playoff hunt who have a game against somebody who's not a playoff contender themselves. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a lot of ups and downs the next few weeks. It's sort of like you could get hot on a 3-game streak and cruise your way into a good seed in the playoffs and a playoff run, or you can get cold at the wrong time and be out. Funny year.
That's the NFL this year. Let's talk about 2 teams in the playoff hunt in the NFC. The Sunday night game, was it?
It's so hard to remember, man. I'm telling you,
it's too much football. But the Saints versus the Bucks. I think this was Sunday.
Yeah. The Saints have the Bucks number always, right?
Always. I don't know.
The Bucks have the Rams number. The Bucks have the Rams number. The Saints have the Bucks number. It's like there's all these matchups in the NFL where there's just one team seems to win every game. It's the Browns own the Bengals. The Bengals own the Ravens. It's like everybody has a team like that they just can't beat. It's funny. So I felt there was more of that happening in the Tampa Bay game than anything else. It was just sort of like this matchup just doesn't suit Tom Brady. He has not played well against them. I think it's 3 games in a row now?
I don't want to just put it on Tom Brady. It's the team as a whole.
No, I mean, it's everybody, but I'm saying he just doesn't seem to have protection, doesn't seem to have guys open. He doesn't seem to have his usual array of options to throw to quickly. And once you get any quarterback into like interior pressure and not having the quick place to go with the football you expect it to go, then it's pretty tough for anyone, even the greatest.
Even the greatest. Probably one of his worst games. I forgot what the stat was, but it was like shut out for the first time since like 2010 or something like that.
And the only one I can think of off the top of my head that might be comparably bad was his last game in New England where he ended with the pick 6 and they were just that's the kind of he had an all-time career bad game, that kind of a game. So that's just, and I guess you just shake that off. It's such an anomaly for them.
It's so weird. It's like this is not the best Saints team, and yet somehow, some way, they still managed to lose this game. I thought for sure, okay, because the narrative going into the week is like we can't beat the Saints, and this is all you're hearing, and you're just remembering all the losses as of recently that you've taken to them. So you just have to at least make that bulletin board material. Like we have to beat them this time around, especially now that they're so. Plagued with injuries, we have to find a way to win. And they just came out and laid a dud, getting shut out at home. I did not see that one coming at all.
Yeah, I just think it's nobody wants to win that 1 seed. I'm telling you, Green Bay is like they're the only team right now that hasn't had a really head-scratching, disappointing performance for 2 months or something. And they might be the only team in the NFL that can say that. And that's just danger, man. It's just like a matter of time. Ticking time bomb.
Everyone take your turn. That's all that is,
Yeah.
Their turn will come soon. And As we mentioned before, unfortunately for them, their turn seems to have been in the postseason. So maybe they can just kind of lose one on purpose and change their luck around.
I think matchups. I think when we get down to it, the postseason is partially going to be determined by matchups. It's just who you happen to get in front of you. If they're a good matchup for you, or a team that you feel comfortable playing, you're a team that whose quarterback struggles against you, or whatever. That'll be the thing that kind of gives a big factor to who's going to go home or not. And right now, it's just hard to say with records.
So, a two-part question then.
Yeah.
Number one, can the Saints find themselves in the playoffs? Right now, they're on the outside looking in. They're tied with the Vikings, who have that last spot at 7-7. They are also sitting at 7-7. Two, if the Saints can make it in and they end up facing the Bucs, is this something the Bucs should worry about?
Oh, I would say a little bit. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think the last thing you want to see in that first round game that you get after you work so hard to win your division and get a home game in the playoffs is to play some team that you don't really want to face. I feel like there's a litany of these games going back several years in the NFL. They're just like some team was hot and then they ended up, sneaking in the playoffs and facing the number one seed or some top seed and it just give you this victory out of nowhere against a team that everybody expected to go to the Super Bowl. That happens every year, right? So, or most years. It's rare when it doesn't happen. So, yeah, I feel like that's something to be worried about. Always, it's matchup. Styles make the matchup. It's like boxing. And sometimes you have an opponent that will lull you into a low-scoring game when you want to be a high-scoring team, or will lull you into a shootout when all you want to do is run the ball and keep it close. So, I think that could make a big difference for them. I feel like there's something about the Saints defensive line and the Bucs offensive line looks great against virtually everybody, and they look like the worst offensive line in the NFL against the Saints. It happens every time. So can't explain it.
All right. Let's jump into this week's games. Let's go ahead and let's start it off with what you've got circled on your calendar. Steelers, Chiefs, what's going to happen in this one?
I thought before any of the COVID stuff that I would put money on the spread with the Steelers for a couple of reasons. One is, as I mentioned last week's show, they've been really good at playing close games when they're a big underdog. They generally play close games or win outright. That's A. B, the Steelers and Chargers, when they played in Los Angeles, the Steelers played without their three best defenders, and they played basically even with the Chargers. They had the lead with a minute left to go or 30 seconds left to go or something in the game, in the shootout, right? The difference between the Chargers and the Chiefs was basically overtime at the end of the game. So to me, Pittsburgh, Kansas City are not as far apart as we would think they are, especially when they have all the defenders going. So you have a pretty good defense with some stars against a pretty good offense with some stars. And then the other side of the football, neither team is perfect, but every once in a while they'll make a play that helps their team, right? So like the Steelers have the bend but don't break offense. They're like they can once in a while make a play that's really important, but they're not going to like wow you the rest of the time. Same with Kansas City's defense. So I felt this matchup was really close before any of the COVID stuff happened. I'm almost more worried about it now as a Steelers fan with the COVID delays, because it could be that Kelsey, tested positive early in the week. He could come back in time for this game.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like you're going to spend all week not knowing who you're preparing for exactly. And then you're going to get out there and suddenly you're going to have their regular team and you weren't sure you were going to, or you have a delay. And so it throws off your schedule. But I feel like the Steelers have at least a puncher's chance in this game. And that's especially true if Kelsey and or Tyreek, he'll miss this game, because as I've said all year, I feel like the Chiefs are really a 2-receiver offense. They don't have a lot of other stuff. And more importantly, Steelers can't stop anybody from running it. I don't think the Chiefs have the running game or the patience or the commitment to it to go into it.
They've been trying more as of late.
They're trying more, but it's like they just are too good passing it to really be like, hey, we're just going to keep running it until you, like New England, they just keep running it at you until you can't stop it. They don't care about the stats or, well, we don't throw enough or our balance. And Kansas City, I think, is more like they need to get these guys the touches, or guys like Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill get a little bit out of sorts. They don't get the ball. So I suspect this is at the very least a very entertaining. I expect it'll be a really good game, especially if it's played on time between basically Pittsburgh, it's a playoff game for them, and Kansas City is not going to be at their best. So I like this matchup. You're going to disagree with me, but don't forget, you disagreed with me last week too.
Did I?
Yeah. You're like, the Titans are just too good.
I highly doubt I ever said that.
The Titans are unbeatable. You said they'll never, ever lose. What do you think about Chiefs Steelers?
I've had them on fraud watch for a couple weeks now. I think, I'm sorry, I disagree with you. If, and this is a big if Kelsey and Tyreek Hill don't play, then of course it's going to be a much closer game. I still think Chiefs would find a way to win. I think offensively, Steelers just have too many deficiencies. Last week, watching them play against the Titans, again, a team that's not that good, it just was way too close of a game. I thought this would have been a chance for them to really establish themselves. Really establish the run.
Every close game, Jude. Even when they were.
Every game is a close game. I don't like it. I want you to blow a team out when you are a clearly better team. And right now,
from your lips to God's ears, but yeah.
I think they're a clearly better team than the Titans, and I thought that was their chance to impose their will and really just, come away with a convincing victory, and it didn't.
Sure.
Much better team you're facing this week. Again, if it's without Kelsey and or Hill, it'll be a close game, but I don't know if they'll be able to pull off, a close game victory against this team right here, right now, because they still have Patrick Mahomes, who's going to go out there and throw it to Mecole Hardman, or maybe this will be the game that Josh Gordon finally shows up. And I like that they are sticking and trying more with that run game, and apparently the Steelers aren't really good, stopping the run. So maybe they'll say, hey, this is working for us. We're short a couple weapons. Let's stick to Hilaire. Let's let Williams run the ball. Let's do that. If they have Kelsey and Hill on the other side of the coin, though, I think this isn't going to be a close game at all for the Steelers, which really sucks for them because they're right there at the cusp of a playoff spot.
Although, to be fair, this is the most losable game they have. They have 2 division games left after this. So if they lose to the Chiefs and win the next 2, they're probably a playoff. They're probably good chance to win the division doing that. So winning the Chiefs is like a bonus they might get with COVID. So yeah, but they're looking for wins however they can get them there. They should be desperate anyway.
Absolutely. Especially as we've been saying, like literally it's going to come down to the wire in the AFC right now. So every win is going to be important, but I don't know how believable I find it that, they stand a chance if Kansas City gets all their players back. In a close one, though, without all their weapons, I think the Steelers still will end up losing.
All right, I could take it, Jude. It's fine. No, I wouldn't expect anything else. I think if you just, if you sort of have an outsider perspective on the situation, it's easy to make it look because the Chiefs. The Chiefs are easy to believe in because they got the fantasy stars and they do this and that. But you look at the scoreboard and it's like in that game against the Chargers, they went a long stretch without really scoring or doing the things that we think of as being Chiefs exploding for points. It wasn't really like that. And that's against the Chargers defense. I don't think
first half.
I'm just saying, I don't think the Chargers defense is very good at all. So
they're not, but again, division rivals, it's kind of different,
Yeah, you throw out that stuff. I agree with that. What else you want to talk about?
You play them tougher, Let's go more playoff implication games. Let's go 49ers Titans. Titans losers of the last 2. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't think the Titans are. I don't know about the health of their wide receivers. But the Titans.
I think AJ Brown will be playing this week, but they look like they may be without Julio Jones again, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, man, they're just
a terrible year for Julio, honestly.
The Titans just don't look like they have enough. I mean, their game, they're well coached, and they have a few guys that are good players. But man, they got some problems right now with, injury depletion or a couple of positions that are really hurting them. So yeah, I feel like it's it's hard to believe in the 49ers being a real playoff contender, but there they are, they're right there and they have a sort of a formula for winning. They figured out, here's the secret to the 49ers. They figured out how to have Jimmy Garoppolo as your quarterback and have him succeed like at the stuff that he's good at without asking him to do too much stuff that he's not good at. And that seems to be working for them. So I guess I'm leaning 49ers in this game just because the Titans feels like they've fallen off a cliff here.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm 100% with you. I've been team Titans or frauds since the very beginning, ever since Derrick Henry was out. I'm sorry. It's just week in and week out, it's just consistently been proven. Tannehill without his top two receivers, both of them, it's just he can't be a great quarterback without them, especially without A.J. Brown. Even though A.J. Brown may play this week, I still don't think this is going to be a good game for them. The 49ers play some really good defense. And they do what they have to do offensively, whether that's throwing the ball, whether that's play action, whether that's lining up Deebo Samuel in a million different ways and getting him the ball out in space to do what he does. They don't care. They'll just do whatever they can to score points and play good defense. And, that's a winning formula for them. Not to mention they're trying to solidify their position in the playoff hunt right now, sitting in sixth place in the NFC. I think they're looking at this. They're treating every game, as a matter of fact, as if it were a playoff game. And you look at the Titans and you are saying, hey, these guys aren't good offensively. We're not going to sleep on them. We're going to take this serious and do what we have to do. Continue running the ball as much as we can. Again, Elijah Mitchell, he wasn't able to play. Just roll in another running back. Jeff Wilson comes back, and now he's a feature back. He runs for over 100 yards. They just make it happen, and I like them for it. I wish the Titans were able to do it. No Derrick Henry. Let's find a sustainable running attack. 1 week it's one guy, the next week it's another guy. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. All the time the passing game isn't there. Ryan Tannehill, he came to the Titans and he was kind of like a breath of fresh air and like the savior of the franchise. But now all of a sudden it's kind of like, where is he? Like, we need you to step up, and it just hasn't happened as of yet. Nonetheless, 49ers, I think this is a game that they come away with a convincing victory.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like the Titans there's one thing going for them, which is there's a small possibility, I guess, that Derrick Henry is going to make it back either by the end of the regular season or for the playoffs. And the Titans, it's almost impossible for them to lose the division. They basically have to lose 3 games. I think one of them's against the Jets. So that seems unlikely. I think they have Jets or Jacksonville. They got somebody late in the
Titans. They've got Dolphins, Titans, 49ers. That's their.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I mean the Titans. It would be hard for them to lose all 3 because they're playing somebody terrible, is what I recall.
Yeah, they're playing Dolphins, Niners, and Texans. Sorry, I said
Texans. Titans. Yeah. So that's the one. It's like, yeah, they're probably not with their season on the line. They're probably not losing all 3 of those. And frankly, I don't think the Colts are going to win 3 either. So that's still not going to happen.
I don't know. This team is not good, man. I've been saying it. I've been screaming it. I'll continue.
Yeah, but if the Titans are not good, what does that make Houston? I mean, come on.
Houston is not good, but Houston's another team like Detroit. Even though they're very terrible and they're in it right now for that number 1 overall seed, they're still going to come out every week and give you their best shot. So That being said, don't just look at Houston and say, okay, this is the game where we have to win or we're definitely going to win. You're going to get punched in the mouth, and you're going to find yourself on the wrong side of that game, the losing side. Well,
let me put it this way. The Titans could still win the division by losing all 3 games because let's go to the next one, and that's Indianapolis going to Arizona. Like if the Colts got to win this game in Arizona basically
pretty much
to have a chance to win the division. Even losing the game, let's just say the wild card part of it is they're still in pretty good position for the wild card, losing to Arizona, but it's not going to help them. That's for sure.
It's not going to help them win the division. That's definitely for sure. I mean, but on the other side of it, this is the toughest game they have left. After the Cardinals, they've got a game against the Raiders and a game against the Jaguars. Again, don't overlook any of these games. This is the year in the NFL.
No, but that sounds like 2 wins, right? Exactly, which would be enough to get them a wild card.
This is the year in the NFL. I hate the cliches, but any given Sunday, okay?
Any given Tuesday.
Any given Tuesday, Saturday, Monday, Thursday. Any game, any day, it can happen, all right? But you've got a game against the Cardinals, and I think this is kind of like that game 2 weeks ago against Tampa Bay. Hey, man, here's your chance. Let's show that we belong, that we're not a team that's just fighting to make it to the playoffs, and then we're going to be content that we made it to the playoffs, get out of there in the first round and say, well, it was a successful season. Let's show that we can actually win some games in the playoffs. And who knows, maybe, fate is on our side. We find a way to make it all the way to the Super Bowl and win this thing, okay? But we can't take you serious. We can't see that happening if you don't win this game against Arizona. You came very close, this close against Tampa Bay. The game really came down to about 2 or 3 plays, and maybe one less Carson Wentz interception is a different outcome. But that's in the past. Right now, you've got an Arizona team. All of a sudden, they've got a 2-game losing streak.
Licking their wounds. Yeah.
All of a sudden, licking their wounds. All of a sudden, no DeAndre Hopkins for the rest of the regular season. Right? Yeah. Listen, it's kind of lining up for you to take advantage. All right. You need to be able to do it. You need to feed Jonathan Taylor the ball. He's the guy that's gotten you to this point so far. You need to play some of the best defense you've been playing, even though you've been pretty good. Step it up a notch. And Carson Wentz, listen, I'm on your side of things. A lot of people are saying you're kind of just there. You're more of a game manager now. I say this is your best season in a while. You just need to not throw any interceptions, not lose any fumbles, and, put your team in position to win and just turn around and hand that ball off, Do the play action thing here and there, but turn around and hand that ball off. Let your defense play good defense, make good position. That's all you need to do. You can possibly win this thing, okay? You do it. You can win the division because the Titans suck. Just go out and do it. It's nothing crazy. Play smart football. Let Jonathan Taylor run the ball. Don't put your defense in bad positions. It's very simple, very easy to do. Go out, get it done. Get yourself a home playoff game.
Yeah, you're trying to talk yourself into believing that they can win this game.
I believe that they can win. I'm sorry. As much as I like Arizona right now, with DeAndre Hopkins not being there, I think that's a huge key important piece of their offense that's not going to be there.
That is true.
So no. I think they'll match up very well against the rest of these Arizona receivers because who's really the lead dog in the house after that, right? So It'll be a little bit easier to manage, a little bit easier to say, hey, maybe we can spy Kyler now since we don't have to worry about DeAndre just running free throughout our secondary. And you put yourself in position, and you just got to want it. I'm sorry, but you're an NFL team with Super Bowl aspirations. You've got to want it. If you're not able to beat this team now, then go ahead, just pack it up and, don't even bother. Get yourself a better seed as far as the draft is concerned.
Better draft pick, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it's a big game for the Colts. If they manage to win, if you're right with your scenario, that pretty much, I don't know if it guarantees them a wild card spot, but it comes pretty close. Mm-hmm. The worst they could end up with a win is 9-8, but I think at 9-8, they have a lot of things going for them in terms of the rest of the schedule and being able to get in. So they would be one of the better seeded 9-8 teams. So I have a feeling that a win that you're not expected to get, followed by 2 games that are winnable for you, are put them in pretty good shape. But I like the Cards to bounce back. It just, I'm not sure that Indianapolis has showed travels as well either as they play at home, and don't really trust a game that's totally focused on running the football and trying to limit the mistakes that their quarterback makes. I'm not sure I believe in that formula. Being a real against a really good team, against a so-so team, yeah.
You know what I trust most in this NFL? I trust Jonathan Taylor to rush for 100 yards and a touchdown. That's what I trust most in today's NFL. That's all I'm going to say.
How many games do you think you're going to win if Jonathan Taylor runs 100? In 2021, how many games are you going to win? Jonathan Taylor runs for 100 yards and scores a touchdown.
That's not a great indication of games.
No, I'm saying you're going to be 10-7.
10-7.
That's the NFL. It's like 100-yard rush games don't necessarily translate into a lot of wins. That's all I'm saying. They're better than not having one, but it isn't necessarily like if that's what your offense is. Let's put it that way. They got to be amazing.
I hear you, but I love a good running game when I'm able to get an early 2 or 3 touchdown lead.
Oh no! When you have a lead, when you have a lead that you've gotten by throwing the football and then or defensive, touchdowns or whatever, and then you have the running game to be able to, cash that check. Yeah, that's what you need. That's amazing. And especially when the other team knows you're going to run it and you can still pound it down their throats. Fantastic. Nothing better. Very satisfying. But the idea that you're going to start a game by thinking, I'm going to run well enough to score enough so that you can't make a comeback in the end of the game by just throwing the ball against a prevent defense. Like that's really what the problem is. It's too easy to catch up in the NFL. You can't get enough points running it only to get far enough ahead that a team from behind can't catch up late, or, you get a weird bounce or a weird tip or something like that. And before you know it, they get an extra possession. So I love it. And as far as closing the deal, great. But it's like having Mariano Rivera as your closer, but asking him to start the game for you. As a closer, fantastic. Best there ever was. As is the guy starting the game, I'm not sure. I hate, it sounds like I hate running. It's not really true. But nowadays it's just, I think
it's not today's NFL.
The teams that don't fantasize about how much they need to run the ball and just think, what's going to work best here? How can I beat this team? How can we score? Those are the teams I think that do better on offense than the ones that we have to run a certain amount or else.
Yeah. You can't be unwilling to adjust to whatever the defense.
Throw 30 times if it works, 50 times if it works, run 50 times if it works. That's, I have to give credit to Bill Belichick. He's a guy that
he's literally
minimizes that. He's done both,
He's literally run it 50 times this year.
That's right.
We've seen Bill is definitely all about, I don't care about numbers. A win is a win is a win. However I get it, that's how I take it. Gotta tip your hat to that.
Well, one more, Baltimore and Cincinnati. What do you think about this matchup? This is basically the two first place teams in the AFC North that somebody has to win. Bengals did enough to win in Denver. I give them credit for that. The Ravens are, they're missing their cornerbacks. Their quarterback, I guess, is going to come back and be sort of like less than 100%. They're down to their fifth running back. What can Baltimore be for real enough to withstand? Cincinnati wants this is their moment, right? Is the thing all that stuff you said about Indianapolis? This is Cincinnati's week for that.
Is it their moment? I don't know.
I mean, it should be. I think it is? I don't know. Well, I'll wait until you tell me.
I want so badly to believe in Cincinnati, but it's they just find ways to make me believe myself less and less. Jamar Chase, when he looks good, he looks good. But when he looks bad, he looks bad. To come out of last week's game with one catch for 3 yards, I mean, that's terrible. But now all of a sudden, Joe Mixon, he was pretty hot earlier on, but he's kind of just lost in the shuffle as well. Burrow, I don't know if that finger, how much of a story it is, but he's not lining it up like we're accustomed to. Mm-mm. Fortunately for them, they've got other pieces. Taj Boyd has stepped up. Tyler Boyd has stepped up when they needed him to.
T. Higgins a little bit.
T. Higgins, he stepped up when they needed to. So it's not like everything completely hinges on these guys, but it's also I would love to see a complete game where everyone is on the same page. Everyone is clicking, and it's not like desperation heaves and somebody steps up and makes a play that you're not expecting them to. On the other side, it's just Baltimore is just so depleted by injury. First one being is Lamar going to play? Yes, he was questionable up to game time, so he was a game time decision. But I don't know how true that was because the ankle is a high ankle sprain. So it's are you really going to be coming back? Well, it wasn't a high ankle sprain, but still, ankle injury is severe. And for him, especially being a mobile quarterback, that's not something that you can just kind of take lightly. It changes your game.
Tape it up. Yeah, no, not exactly.
Yeah, right. So this week, is he really going to be that much better, or is it really just going to be another situation where it's we're going to wait until the last minute just because we really hope that we can, have Lamar, our best player, our guy that we've shaped our whole offense after. Are we going to be able to have him? Tyler Huntley, yes, he's stepped in and played admirably, but he's not Lamar when it comes down to it. So I just feel obviously Lamar gives them their best chance to win. Can they win without him because it's the Bengals? Yes, but I feel every week I'm here saying, but if the Bengals do this and if the Bengals do that, then they should be able to win easily. And here I am, right back at it again. Why do you put me in these positions? Right back at it again. If the Bengals can play a complete game, if they can get Joe Mixon going again, if they can get their number one pick looking like a number one pick again. I think it was the first 8 games of the season, he had 900 yards, and he's kind of just fallen off a cliff since then. If they can get him and Burrow on the same page again, then this is a game that, especially with all the injuries that the Ravens have at corner, this is a game that the Bengals should definitely win and definitely say, hey, we're going to take this AFC North crown now and put it on our heads after it's been away for so long. A lot of ifs, a lot of buts.
That's a lot of ifs.
Nonetheless, it's still what I think is the more likely scenario because I just can't put any stock into the Ravens at this point.
I'm taking the Ravens. I mean, it's just I have observed. I've seen these teams play a lot, obviously, and I just feel like the Bengals. We talked about this a few weeks ago. How will they respond to being the top team in the division, right? Like to be the team that's being chased and hunted rather than feeling like we're just trying to get closer. We're trying to get closer because it's, if you're chasing somebody, you have this object in front of you that you can chase and you can push yourself to go harder and harder. When you're in the lead, it's harder. Your mentality is different about doing it. And it just feels like I guess the best way I can say this is, yeah, the Ravens have problems, but the Bengals have sort of topped out. Like their season feels like it was going up, and now it's just sort of going across. Good enough to beat a team like Denver on a blown coverage. I mean, that was really the difference in that game was one blown coverage that Denver had. Otherwise, they're even with Denver. And Baltimore is like, they're playing a lot of close games. They keep every game. They're in it. They keep it close. They've won a lot of games early in the season in close games, and they've lost a few, late in the season with close games. But I don't trust Cincinnati in a close game. But if they're way ahead and early in the game, yeah, they could probably put Baltimore away. But the Ravens keep it close or even get a lead. It's just the psyche of Cincinnati. I don't think they're prepared to climb that mountain yet. I mean, maybe they're a year away from that. Maybe I feel like they're the division favorite next year. But I think they're still a little ways away. I'm still not sure about their offensive line. Still got some issues. Some of their rookie receivers sort of hit the wall. Joe Mixon doesn't seem to be quite where he was, but they're capable of coming out and blowing you out if they get the lead early and you let them do what they want to do. But Baltimore doesn't usually play like that. They're not one to get down early, unlike other teams in the division who like to get down early and come back later. So Ravens. I mean, I like the Ravens. I maybe it's a bit of wishful thinking. I would like the Ravens to win. But we'll see. If Cincinnati proves it to me, then maybe they'll prove it to me. They have a tough schedule, man. They got Kansas City the following week and the Browns, I think. So that's three pretty tough games for Cincinnati. So they will prove it if they end up winning the division.
All right. I guess we've come to that point where
we have. I
think so. Yeah. Where you do your thing.
It's Festivus. Do you have any kind of grievances to air? How about a feat of strength? You got anything going?
I do have a Festivus grievance to air with the Bills. You've made me look like an idiot for the vast majority of the year. It took me way too long to jump off that ship. I don't like it. The Vikings also. You're a team. I like Mike Zimmer. I like him as a defensive coach. And defensively, he has not shown up for me on occasion, and I hate it as well. Funny enough, they're in the playoff run right now. They're in the 7th seed at 7-7, unbelievably so. But if they miss the playoff, I said this before, I'll say it again, I think they definitely get rid of Zimmer. I'm not wishing this on the guy, but I just think that's the reality of it. I think that's all my grievances for right now. I'm sure I'll think of some more later on.
I got one that's in general. It's not really about so many specific games or calls, but NFL officiating is like, there's gambling is legalized now. The league has embraced it. You got a team playing in Vegas, and the decisions that officials make that are fairly arbitrary and uncorrectable have a greater impact on point spreads maybe than anything, maybe affecting the outcomes of the game. Yeah, once in a while they make something really egregious, like for instance in last night's game where they penalized a team whose defense was playing on 3rd and forever and didn't actually hold a receiver, but since holding was called on the defense, it propelled the drive that ended up being the game-winning drive, or a pass interference where the defender never actually came into contact with the player, et cetera. Yeah, these can swing games, but for the most part, though, this it's scary how much manipulation there is of scores, of things that would be fairly easily correctable. They started this deal with the eye in the sky. Now they have a guy who is just saying, here's an obvious mistake. The ball never touched the ground. It should be an interception. It doesn't take an hour to figure that out. It's like he can look at a monitor and be like, oh, yeah, this is obvious. So there's no reason to not extend that to other obvious things to see. And yeah, if the person, the eye in the sky sees a play that he can't figure out in the first 10 seconds what happened with it, then he can't change the play. I'm down with all of that. I don't expect it to be perfect, but I think it'll at least be a little better than it is now. And the spot of the football, NFL has had the technology apparently for 5 or 6 years now with chips. They already have balls that have chips, RFID chips in the balls that, give them all kinds of data. It's the easiest thing in the world for them to know exactly where the ball is on the field. So where your first down is, did it cross the goal line? Where did it go out of bounds? These are things they already have all of the technology. The NFL has more money than God. Fix it. We don't need to have chains with a link on them and a guy looks, 70-year-old guy staring down at it, trying to figure out if it reached the sticks. This is dumb.
You don't love the index cards, man?
No, I don't. And as somebody who was an official for, 25 years, it's even more irritating because it's like, yeah, you're putting people, you have rules that put people in impossible positions to try to figure out what to do. And there's no way to correct it if they make a mistake. So they're going to tend to, throw the flag and, hope that they didn't miss anything versus letting a call go because they weren't sure about it. And I think that leads to really bad officiating and at least to bad outcomes. So there's my grievance, but Jude, happy everything to you. Happy Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I don't know if you celebrate any of the other holidays, like National Bourbon Day or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or anything, but man,
the Festivus miracle.
Festivus for the rest of us. He's Jude Allume. Catch him at THEE, Mr. Allume. On the places Instagram and Twitter. I am Accidental Zen on Twitter. My name is Wil Masisak. This is, tell him, Jude.
Old school, that guy. New school, this guy.
Old school, new school football. Peace.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you old guys singing. Yeah.